Thank you very much, Ernie, and thank you very much for the organizer for this invitation. This is my first time in Estonia and in Tartu, of course, so I'm very glad to be here. Before I start my contribution, I would like to ask who knew about On the Move before coming to this conference? It's not bad, okay, thank you. And who knew On the Move was a network? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, usually it's a little bit less, so it's quite interesting also like to make this presentation to focus in particular on the question of the network. And this is the story I am going to share, not only for the sake of sharing a story about On the Move, but also to highlight how the question of access to information for mobile artists and cultural professionals reflect as well on change of context and also reflect on the complexity of this concept of cultural mobility. And the question of complexity was already touched upon very much this morning in the first panel. As far as On the Move is concerned, it's true that at the very so On the Move was created in 2002, so it's already 21 years, 1 year ago, and it was first a website. So it was not a network at the very beginning, but it was created by a network that maybe some of you may know, which is one of the oldest networks in Europe, which is called IETM, the International Network for Contemporary Performing Arts. So then On the Move, and I will explain a little bit about that, evolve as a network, but I would say that even though at the beginning it was a website, and it's still very much a website, and after it evolved into a network, I would say that the very mission of On the Move has remained the same. The question of making accessible on a free and regular basis access to information that can help the mobility of artists and cultural professionals. And I will come back a little bit on this question of access. So the question of access to information, contact and funding. Too many artists, cultural professionals, particularly when they start their career, but not only, are not enough aware of the mobility funding or the support that they could benefit of. So On the Move, as much as possible, I mean, as it was said this morning, I mean, everybody is also working in a very humble way, but what we try to do is really like to signpost, share information about these mobility opportunities. So if you go on our website, we have more than 3,000 calls and opportunities that are shared on a regular basis, either through our news section or our mobility funding guides. And I would like to say as well, since we are in the context of the European Capital of Culture, of Tartu, and there are also other ECOC delegates. We have more and more calls for the past years in relation with mobility opportunities offered by ECOC as well, so which is quite an interesting trend. The question also of the access to a diversity of mobility opportunities. We talk a lot about residencies. This is a type of format in relation of mobility, but I would say that mobility opportunities can cover the whole value chain, from the training opportunities to co-producing, to collaboration, to, of course, touring, visibility, and so on. So these opportunities that allow to go to another country to promote that. Something also that relates to what was said this morning, this question of mobility being seen as something that can help to repair what you don't have in your own local context or national context. So it can be, for instance, in relation with the artistic form that you are working in. For instance, for circus artists or for artists working in public space. Very often, or too often, I would say, these forms of art are not always recognized in your own national or local context. So the fact of going abroad in Europe, internationally, is also a way to develop work and basically to make an income out of it. It can be also to repair what you don't have in your own context, for instance, for artists and cultural professionals in situations, of disability. I mean, there are too few countries that work to support artists in situation of disability, and so sometimes the fact to go abroad or to benefit from European projects can also help. Last but not least, I mean, we could also further develop this question of access. This is also the question of access to support artists at risk, artists that are, experiencing pressure in their own national or local context, but some of my colleagues, including from Artists at Risk, will mention about that. So all the question of artists in exile and artists in situation of refugee. So I am coming back. So this question of access, I put a little bit of an emphasis on this because this is still very much crucial for us today as a network, despite the fact that we have an overload now, I would say, of information platforms, social networks, and so on. Still, you would be very much surprised on how little sometimes artists and cultural professionals are aware of that kind of opportunity, or sometimes simply don't feel legitimate to apply or to benefit from that kind of support. I wanted also to I will do like Boyana, I will also check a little bit the timing. I would like also to mention that the fact that On the Move evolved from a project website to a network was very much linked to the fact that it's not always easy to convince funders to support a website on the long run. So that's why we decided, I mean, at that time it was member organization that became later member of On the Move, to develop this network in order to sustain the platform. So to work on a network that would not so much defend the interest of their own member, but promote a fairer, more responsible and sustainable cultural mobility. So that's why the network was created more back in 2009, 2010. And after, we had also like to reinvent our, I would say, funding model, because we had at the very beginning an EU funding that after we didn't have, so I will not go so much into the detail, but I would like to connect to what was said a little bit before with the Slido survey, when training was not appearing as a way through which a network could contribute to. What is interesting with On the Move is that when we started to be a network, so back in 2009 and 2010, and when we tried also to develop our funding model in relation to our very mission, but also while developing other forms of activities, training became more a form of action that we could develop as well with our member. More and more organizations approach us about like 6 to 7 years ago to develop workshops to help to accompany artists to internationalize their career, and also while taking into account and into consideration the kind of resource that we had online. So I just wanted to say it's not only like finding the training within the network, but how a network can offer some form of training to other beneficiaries as well. I give you a little bit of information. So this is our website, which appears very big now on the screen. And I just would like, I go a little bit faster, I just would like to give as well a little bit of information about the typology of our member today, so that you get also an image of who are the members. So you have mobility funders, so I guess it speaks for itself. Who are they? I put also some of these funders that are more located in Nordic and Baltic region, like NDPC, for instance, the Northern Dimension Partnership on Culture. We have information platform like Transartist. We have what we call mobility info points. These ones are very important. They are dealing with all the crazy things that you don't like to deal with in your mobility in relation to visa issues, social protection, taxation, and so on. Because there are issues in relation with the broader international mobility field, but there are also issues within the EU on this question. And after we have, of course, network, because I would say that mobility is part also of the DNA of network. And after we have also art organizations that are deeply connected to their own context, but that have as well very much an international dimension. The reason why I am mentioning this member is that these members are working in all their different contexts, in all their different missions, I would say, on the issue of mobility, but you as an individual, you don't need to be a member to access the information that as a network we provide to you. So here I would like to make the differentiation. It's very hard for French to say that. And what do they do? Because usually when you talk about network, people are like, oh, it's just talk shop, and what do you really do? A few activities that we do is also like we have different working group meetings. So this member meet at least 3 to 7 times a year, mostly online. As Boyana was saying, last week we had our forum in Tunis, but usually it's mostly online. And they will choose a topic on which they are going to delve into during this online meeting that can be of 1.5 hours or 2 hours, for instance. And it's also a way to keep updated on what is happening on the mobility front, on different trends, on different topics. And what is also interesting and what you can find, and I guess we will have also that kind of experience in network also at a national level, is that you have a great diversity of members. So, and what is interesting is that they are diverse in terms of size, in terms of context as well. Look at the mobility funders. You have, for instance, the Arts Council of England, but you have also the Roberto Cimetta Fund, which is an independent mobility fund active in the Mediterranean region. But still, they share the same concern. For instance, it can be post-COVID type of adaptation of mobility funding scheme, or how to evaluate the impact of mobility funding scheme. So it's quite interesting also sometimes to de-zoom and to focus on other type of experience and expertise. And one thing in relation with the survey to Slido, thank you to have it before, because it gives also a lot of food for thought. One point that a network can also work on, and that's why organization, individual as well, because we have also 10 very active individuals in our network, their mission can be also to share experience, to provide training, and also to be a source of advocacy. So for our mission, it's particularly to defend and promote a fairer and more responsible cultural mobility. And the more diverse you are, working on a particular issue, the more food for inspiration you can find as well in terms of argumentation to be part of manifesto or advocacy campaign on particular issue, for instance. And I think this is something that we are at least trying to do. And here I just put like a few working groups that we have, so that you find, again, the different topic. And in fact, when you look at this topic, be it on funding, be it on administrative issue related to mobility and forced mobility, so all type of imposed mobility and so on. What I would like to say as well, in connection with the topic of this forum, it's also like how borderless is culture. In an ideal scenario, culture should be borderless. But the working condition in which artists and cultural professionals are evolving are full of borders, be them financial, political, societal, environmental, and so on. And some of these borders are also very visible, and others are also less visible. So this working group, in one way or the other, of course, we cannot contribute to have all the solutions, but are trying to grasp this issue. I need to check the time, sorry. I don't understand, in fact, the time, because I think I still have 14 minutes left, so I agree?
15 minutes. Oh, no, not that much. No. Like
no.
1 or 2, yeah, that's it.
One or two, okay. No, it's good. A last point I would like to raise is that this is also the question of, so On the Move as a network working on the question of mobility, access to information for the sector, and with its member like working on mobility-related issue, that can help also to build a discourse in terms of advocacy towards a fairer and more responsible cultural mobility. One thing that we are trying also to do for the past 2 years, and here I have to say it's also thanks to the support of the European Commission, because we got the support back 2 years ago, so it's good. It's also like to work on data. This is very important. Networks have usually a lot of data, but usually they don't have the financial means to delve into the data, to analyze their data, and to use this data in terms of argumentation for advocacy, both at national, sometimes international or European level. So this is really something that we have been trying to do for 2 years now. This is our second yearbook. So basically, in this yearbook, this is available online. So it's really for the whole sector. But we are trying to share trends and what cultural mobility means in different contexts, be it in Europe, in Africa, in North America. I mean, basically, we try to cover the whole world, and also to focus on particular subjects. So this year we focus on environmental sustainability, while highlighting the fact that this subject is very much into the trend, I would say. Hopefully it will not be only a trend, but you have many calls related to climate change, be it for residency, festival, and so on. But what we try to do is also a bit the behind the scene, what goes behind the scene, and to what extent also artists are fully supported with regard to this issue. And here we can see that even though there is a lot of emphasis put on artists and cultural professionals to develop more sustainable means, of developing their work in another country, very little financial support is put toward them. So this is a kind of data which is also very important to further analyze and to share as well at an advocacy level. And I think my time is up, and I would like just to finish with this wonderful conclusion of the founder of On the Move, Marianne de Vlieg, when she was Secretary General of IETM, and she mentioned this question about the how the why that was driving On the Move 21 years ago is still very relevant in terms of access to information, in terms of accompanying the sector to develop oneself in Europe and internationally, but how the methodology in terms of training, advocacy, and argumentation has further evolved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marie. There's one question for you as well before I let you go from here. Please come.
Sorry.
A little center. And this question actually comes from Sly.do, so it's our audience asking from you, and it goes quite simply: how to stand out in the storm of information. Two networks give a helping hand here, because I've also noticed that I listened to a presentation, and there's so much of that, and in the end I realized, or asking myself, did I understand what they was talking about, or what was important there? You know what I mean. So yeah. What is your answer?
My answer would be first to experiment some of this network or some of this information platform, at least online, not to experiment all the meetings, but to see, okay, I am interested in the question of mobility. Maybe On the Move is an interesting platform for me. And I forgot to put the last slide with the website, by the way, if it can be.
The slides will be available for those who are interested.
And but well, you can say, okay, maybe this is relevant for me, or maybe you can decide that it's Transartiste because you are more interested in really specifically the question of the residency. And after, it's also up to the people, I think, to try them and to see on the long run the ones that are more relevant in terms of the letter of information. Usually all the network or information platform, they have a newsletter, a monthly newsletter where you get updates. And after a while, I do the same. Sometimes I subscribe to some of them, and sometimes I realize this is interesting, but maybe not, in the long run. And after, just to focus on a few, if you are more comfortable on social network, it's also another way to get information. But indeed, we could have believed, maybe 10 years ago we could have closed down because information was enough, but to be very specific on what you need takes some time, and it can only come, I am not putting the responsibility away, but it can only come from you because you know better your needs.
So still concentrating on what you have in front of you and finding the right thing for you.
Exactly, and after it goes also with training, but maybe this will be part of the panel discussion.
Thank you. That's what we'll do. Thank you, Marie. Applause once more, please.